Now, our next speaker is a familiar face to the chef community. He's one of the founders of InSpec and DevSec.io. He's now a product leader for cloud and AI at Google. Please welcome Dominik Richter.
That was awesome. All right. In April of 1913, in the Mississippi countryside, an artist was born named McKinley Morganfield. He is now known professionally as Muddy Waters, the father of modern-day Chicago blues. Muddy Waters' influence spread through the British music scene, catching the ears in 1968 of Robert Plant, John Paul Jones, John Bonham, and Jimmy Page. These young men formed the band, a really freaking good one. You've probably heard of them, Led Zeppelin. The most, yes, debatable, influential rock band in history. So Led Zeppelin's legacy continued to influence and fuel the great Seattle bands, such as Nirvana and Soundgarden, or the 21st century artists like Kesha and Lady Gaga. Where am I going with this? This is still a talk about AI in operations, isn't it? Yeah, think about it this way. So just as Led Zeppelin laid the foundation, was built on a foundation that Muddy Waters came before it, AI is built and evolves on the foundation that you all lay with building the coded enterprise. So in the next 20 minutes, we'll dive into that evolution. We'll dive into artificial intelligence. We're going to look at what's real, what's coming, and how it relates to us as humans and our work that we do today. So what do we know about AI? Well, it's out there. It's in a bunch of fields. This is, for instance, recently in the field of medicine. It can help you detect cancers, tumors. This is in the field of finance, where it, for instance, helps conduct trades. Actually, most of the trades are done by robots these days. Even in some of the creative fields, like music, we have seen AI, which was honestly weird to me in the beginning. And then, of course, there's this. This, by the way, is my latest attempt at trying to crash the internet. Didn't work. But AI is kind of important to Google, like considering they went from mobile first to AI first. And AI has been introduced in many different fields. So for instance, we've got this awesome new augmented reality in maps. We have new capabilities in the assistant. If you haven't seen, shameless plug, the Google I/O Keynote, I highly encourage you to do so. It's really exciting to see some of these things. So okay, AI is out there. In terms of the hype curve, where are we at roughly? Yeah, right at the peak. Gartner puts us there with deep learning and everything else. But honestly, when we think about it, the way that we talk about it, I would put it way up there, actually. And this is fueled by the lofty goals that we have from television and movies, anything from droids like C-3PO and sentient cowboys from Westworld. And the reality is a little bit more sobering. It's more specialized. It's still magical, right? Like when AI helps you find a tumor, or it's magical when StarCraft players get beaten by AI. That's a different story. So, okay, everybody is getting fancy new AI tools. What about us? What about us who are in development and operations? Where are our fancy tools? And does it get me out of the office faster at night? That's a good goal. Well, before I get there, I have to cover something else first, because anytime I bring up AI, there's like this lingering fear with people. This lingering fear that these cutesy little robots are going to take my job away. Like, don't look at me with those puppy dog eyes and your rounded edges and everything. Disney, well, I know, thank you for the movie. I can see your vicious intentions. I can see right through you. And, it's kind of true. The idea of machines replacing jobs has been one that's been around for a while. We've seen it in the last century or two with the introduction of motorized vehicles, the steam engine, the automobile, called the death engine on wheels initially. I still remember, and this may sound weird, but my grandpa plowing some of the smaller fields that he had with a horse and a plow. That isn't too far away, and when we introduced new technology there, it was met with fear as well. But you can go further back. Like, who knows what this is? That's a watermill, right? How do you think the ancient Grecan people reacted to the introduction of the watermill? Was it great, heralded, awesome, there's a watermill? No, it was met with fear. It was met as an introduction of a technology that was going to replace labor, and it did. It caused starvation in a few parts too. So technological unemployment is something that's been around for a while. It's been with us as long as human culture has evolved. And some say that right now we're in the middle of the third industrial revolution, and that up to 47% of the jobs in the US right now are at high risk of being automated away. So yeah, there is a dark side to this. But also, as new technology comes in, when it is first introduced, before it starts creating jobs, it destroys old jobs, and that is true. We could try to stop it, we could try to fight it, but ultimately it will only slow it down and will make the transition more painful. So what I always like to think about is we should find ways of shaping it and making it do the right things for us and helping it evolve with the right opportunities. So ultimately, AI provides new tools. It's a new set of tools that you can use. A new set of working, it helps you with collaborating as well, it gives you new jobs. When I think back, for us in technology, that's pretty normal. When I was a pipsqueak, I started with C++, now I'm coding in Go. We went in the blink of an eye from physical servers to virtual machines to containers, the cloud, serverless, a whole range of technologies that happen rather quickly. And AI is basically another tool that's been added here today. Even though some of the mechanisms that we have right now are still in the beginning stages, it is continuously evolving. So we know that AI doesn't happen overnight. You don't just suddenly wake up one morning and there's self-driving cars everywhere to get you to work. The same is true for us in operations. It won't just move us from dreaded debugging all night because I put a comma somewhere where I should have put a dot, to daiquiris on the beach somewhere. It's not going to happen. But it does provide tools to help us. So how do we get there? What needs to happen? I like to think about it in the terms of 3 steps. The first step is we need to collect and structure the data. And you've seen this with every company that's really based on AI these days. That's what they have done. They have collected large amounts of data because they knew that it was going to be the foundation upon which they can learn and become better. And it's also something that I feel we got really, really right these many years ago when we first created InSpec, but also with Chef and other tools, that it started to structure that information. It helped us collect it, structure it, expose it. And that's the foundation. In the second step, we look at all that data, and we are starting to learn from it. We want to understand what's really going on. And it's about gaining insights. So for instance, if you're in a data center and there's a rack on fire and it's dripping battery acid everywhere, there is an insight that says you should probably do something about that. That's not good. The same is true here. So it's about querying that data, asking it questions, or making assertions, and ultimately collaborating and sharing with that. And this second point, by the way, the learning stage, is also where the whole human versus AI question really, really comes down to. Does anybody know who this guy is? You yell the name? Garry Kasparov, that's right. Garry Kasparov, for those of you who don't know, was a world chess master, grand master actually for almost 20 years. This picture was taken in 1997, and Garry was playing against a computer and an AI called Deep Blue. And Garry lost. Garry essentially lost to an AI that is simpler than the average chess application that I can download on my phone today. So put yourself into his shoes here for a second, right? You built your life on it. You invested so much time, you became the best in the world, and suddenly, one day, you essentially get beat by a glorified calculator. What do you do? What do you do now? Well, Gary didn't give up. He actually turned it around. He put more time into it. He started to investigate this AI phenomenon. And he started to look at the strengths and weaknesses that we find in it. And one of the things that he ran into was Moravec's paradox, which says that it's comparatively easy to make computers exhibit adult-level performance on things like intelligence tests or games, but it is difficult, yea, almost impossible to give them the skills of a one-year-old when it comes to perception and mobility. AI can't do everything, right? So it is difficult to give computers intuition or to give them creativity. And based on that, and the idea of strategic planning, he started to develop this little test of his, where he pitted weak players, like myself, and average machines, but with a superior process, against stronger players, or stronger players with strong machines, but an inferior process. And the weaker players would beat them over and over and over again. So there's something there in the way that we think, in our intuition, our creativity, in our way of providing direction. Humans aren't perfect. We know this. Anybody who has ever traveled with me knows that. How often have I forgotten my passport somewhere in a hotel lounge? Or remember that? Yeah. So we are not perfect. As the amount of data increases, we're getting a lot of data in, as the complexity of the systems increase as well, there's new tools to help us reason through that. And these tools are great at doing that job, and great at doing this heavy lifting. But we are still here to provide guidance. We are the ones that are in the midst of strategic planning. And that's one of our strengths that won't go away. And this gets us to the third step. The third step in this larger evolution is automation. And when I talk to you all, obviously this is not a new topic. We've been talking about automation for almost a decade now. Automation and actuation together. So we've had the evolution of tools like Chef and Puppet, Ansible and Inspect, Docker, and so on. All of these are powerful actuation engines that helped us to automate these tasks, that helped us to put the decisions which we made earlier into practice and do so consistently. So automation as a whole, it needs the right decisions. And these decisions are where AI comes in, so it can help you support that. But decoded enterprise, decoded everything, really is the foundation for us to programmatically alter these systems. And it is critical for the execution of the promise of AI. So if we look at what's happened over the last couple of years, what do we have today? Like, what's real, for a second? And when I look at my job at the moment, there's a couple of areas where I can see AI being effective and being real and being there. Let me introduce those three main areas to you. Number one, cost. We all care about cost. We're trying to drive it down. Okay, sometimes when I spin up machines, I don't care about cost as long as the bill is handled by somebody. But these organizations care about cost, ultimately. AI can help you with that. So it can help find over-provisioned resources, adapt to the traffic that you get. It can help you find stranded resources that people like me left there and went home and never shut down properly. And yeah, it can ultimately improve your cost this way. Actually, Kubernetes and before that Borg was founded on the idea of using the hardware more effectively. That was the whole idea behind it. Make sure that the workloads are distributed in a way that they use that hardware in the best way possible. So cost is the first sector. Second sector is security. AI can help us in security. So for instance, what we've done recently is we looked at unused permissions that people have in the cloud. If you look at the total list of permissions, there's like 600 plus, depending on which cloud you look at. That's a lot to handle for us manually, right? It's really hard to know where I should focus on. And this is, again, a field where AI comes in and can help us optimize these roles and give us better recommendations about what to do. Also, if you've been in the security space for a bit, I remember 2 years ago when I was at Black Hat, I think almost every security vendor in one way or another talked about anomaly detection. So you'll see a lot of that too. Where's the behavior that's weird, that's anomalous in my environment? Where are the things that should not happen there? And this is where AI helps too today. So ultimately, it helps us increase the security and also helps us increase the velocity that we have. Because we don't want security to be a blocker, we actually want security to be a driver of velocity too. So these things go hand in hand. And then the third area, and I like this one personally a lot, is about manageability. And yes, there's fields in operations where AI comes in, like it can give you good recommendations about how to operate your environments more effectively. But really, the area I like the most is troubleshooting. It is those cases where you typically rack your head around because you don't know where that error is. And the more complex these environments are, the more layers they have, the harder it is to find. And this is, again, a field where we can both help you find the right area that caused this, as well as help you anticipate failures and prevent them. So, okay, all of these have one thing in common. All of them are assistive. They are here to help us as humans, to help us do a better job, right? This is not an AI replacing any of the jobs that you have had, unless, of course, like you like crunching through millions of rows in a table and trying to find the right data. And it's a bit of a hobby, but if I have to do it repeatedly, it's also really, really tough to do. There's more interesting topics that are connected to all of this. So for instance, we've got AI learning from the human behavior and predicting what kind of steps you want to take, predicting the right way to help you. We've got a big issue around trust, which is a very complex topic. How do you know you can trust the recommendations and the AI that you have, which we are still trying to resolve. And it kind of leads into the next one, which is bugs in AI. Like we have all heard about these cases where it spiraled out of control, for instance, at Wall Street, where you had negative feedback loops, and that caused millions in damages, I think like $10 million per minute in the case in 2012. So there is enough areas here to really work on, and where sometimes it does look like it's an incomplete machine, but it is getting there. So if you want to, feel free to find me in the hallway. I always like talking about these topics, and this may be a future talk as well. So in closing, the cognitive scientist Steven Pinker, he wrote, "The main lesson in 35 years of AI research is that the hard problems are easy, and the easy problems are hard." Don't focus on the hard problems. Use these tools to solve these more easily for you, right? Just like Muddy Waters used an amplifier for the hard work of making his guitar louder, he didn't just drum louder, you can let AI do the hard work of crunching through your data and providing you with input. For the leaders in this room, AI isn't another technology to help you replace employees. It isn't. It's there to make them awesome and amazing at their job. It's another tool to help them be better. So if you think about it, it's just like Muddy Waters was the foundation for Led Zeppelin. AI is really built on the foundation of the coming world and the new technologies that you have built. Garry Kasparov really put it best when he said, AI will force us to be more human. So keep collaborating, because you are rock stars. Thank you.